Now, tonight, an anti-fascist group is taking credit for targeting the FOP Lodge. Crime and Justice reporter Joy LaPolla investigates this group's actions, the risk they pose, and what's being done about it.
Well, so far, we've not heard of any arrests being made, and we didn't see police taking any action over the weekend. Vandalism that some say leadership within the Baltimore Police Department is just unwilling to address. Now, over the weekend, members of an anti-fascist group targeted the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge here in North Baltimore. Now, most of the graffiti that was sprayed on the building and sidewalk has been power washed off. But if you know what was written on that wall, you can still see remnants of some of the expletives and derogatory comments that were up there. Now, this vandalism comes on the heels of the Christopher Columbus statue being toppled earlier this month. Again, vandalism that some here at the FOP say leaders within the department are ignoring. Members of an anti-fascist group known as the Youth Liberation Front Maryland made their message known to police this weekend. These pictures posted on YLF Maryland's Twitter page show the derogatory comments and expletives. It's suspected members spray painted outside Baltimore's FOP Lodge. A few weeks ago, this was the scene in Little Italy. Destruction of property that more and more has started to follow peaceful protests. It's how this group, with chapters across the nation, typically operates, according to the Seattle Times, which recently wrote about the group, saying, quote, Youth Liberation Front leaders portray acts of vandalism as part of the broader struggle to make big changes in America. Similar to this video posted on the 4th of July of a flag being burned, members are accused of burning the FOP's flag over the weekend.
When they see violence, when they see destruction of property, where they may sympathize with the cause, they lose sympathy with the cause because of the actions the protesters are taking.
Even more concerning is the fact that it really appears to be some 19 and 20-year-old kids, probably from the suburbs, who really don't know anything about the conditions of folks who have to live in the city.
Actions prompting some to sympathize more with police, seen standing by as protesters hold their ground.
I don't think there was a lack of enforcement here, as far as I can tell. I think that the action had been taken before the officers responded, and then after that, when the police were present, the best I can tell, were protesting, which is fine. But someone is going to have to be held accountable for the vandalism and destruction.
When the statue of Christopher Columbus toppled, Baltimore's top cop Michael Harrison indicated, quote, it was tactically unsafe to have officers positioned in front of the statue. This latest act of vandalism here at the FOP Lodge, the commissioner again issued a statement saying in part, quote, we will not tolerate acts of vandalism and will hold these offenders accountable. In North Baltimore, Joy LaPolla, Fox 45 News.
Well, even just days after that incident, you can see just across the street from me near the FOP headquarters, police are stationed out here. Now, we're learning at this hour, this is at least the second time this group has been involved with acts of vandalism and destruction here in the city. The group is called the Youth Liberation Front Maryland, and they're taking credit for what was done over the weekend. And they're also taking credit for tearing down the Christopher Columbus statue near the Inner Harbor. Now, law enforcement experts believe the Baltimore Police Department is doing very little to address the matter based on the lack of arrests and action. Now, when the statue of Christopher Columbus toppled, Baltimore's top cop Michael Harrison indicated it was tactically unsafe to have officers positioned in front of the statue. Jason Johnson with the Legal Defense Fund weighs in on the department's response to the matter.
I don't think there was a lack of enforcement here, as far as I can tell. I think that the action had been taken before the officers responded, and then after that, when the police were present, the best I can tell, were protesting, which is fine. But someone is going to have to be held accountable for the vandalism and destruction.
Now, we have sent an email to the Baltimore Police Department again this morning asking if any arrests have been made and asking whether officers were being told to stand down. No response as of yet, but Commissioner Harrison has recently said in a statement that reads in part, quote, we will not tolerate acts of vandalism and will hold these offenders accountable.
Let's begin with Fox 45's Dan Lamparello, who is live to explain if we could see these protests rise to the level that we've seen in some other cities across the nation. Dan?
Well, Mary, with dozens of protests across Baltimore in recent weeks, most have been peaceful, but some have escalated, including one here near Little Italy when protesters toppled a statue of Christopher Columbus a few weeks ago. And some worry without intervention, things could escalate even further.
Aggression and escalation by anti-fascist protesters outside the Baltimore Police Union Hall on Saturday, vandalizing the building and burning the American flag. A scene smaller but similar to unrest taking place nearly 3,000 miles away in Portland, Oregon.
Obviously, what we're seeing in Portland gets us to the point where we're not surprised by an incident like that.
Former FBI agent Dr. Tyrone Powers says he doesn't believe Baltimore will become like Portland, but says we need to be prepared.
How do we make sure that any vandalism at the FOP Hall doesn't escalate into a full-scale rebellion or riot across the city?
Baltimore has seen weeks of peaceful protests, but there have been other clashes, including in May outside City Hall.
That we may see little spots of it, but I don't think Baltimore is going to erupt in the same way that Portland is erupting.
Dr. Kay Wise Whitehead is an associate professor of communication at Loyola University and believes the majority of activists in Baltimore seem to be focused on getting their message heard peacefully.
And there's so many people who are committed to having change in the city without having that type of level of main activism, engagement that might lead to spouts of violence.
But many of the people who instigated the type of aggression we saw this weekend still haven't faced charges, though BPD says they're looking for them. And while masks may make some harder to find, law enforcement experts believe holding them accountable is key to preventing further escalation.
We have to send a message that there are consequences for these type of actions so we do not replicate what we're seeing in Portland.
Now, while BPD says no arrests or charges have been filed in regards to the vandalism here at the Columbus Monument or up at the FOP Lodge, Dr. Powers says those investigations do take time. We're live near Little Italy. Dan Lamparello, Fox 45 News.